Hello, and welcome to yet another completely unprofessional virtual unboxing. And today I'm going to look at something called Island of Inheritance. This was provided, full disclosure, by Sean F. Smith. He sent out a message to some people, and if they wanted to take a look at it and give it a little bit of exposure, of course I said, me, gimme free stuff. And he did provide it to me shortly thereafter. And this is going to be something that we're just going to take a look at and see what it is. So I did peruse it a little bit before doing this video just to kind of get a general idea of what it was, since this wasn't something that I purchased for myself. Usually I do have an idea of what those things are. But after looking through it, pretty much in a nutshell, it's a hex crawl adventure that is designed not specifically for, but utilized for what most would consider od&d, original Dungeons & Dragons in that particular rule set. But of course, it does fall under the OSR banner, and I'm sure with very little ease or very little difficulty, that this can be utilized not only in any sort of OSR game out there. It can be utilized for anything because other than what you utilize for the adventure within the island itself, the mechanics themselves are very succinct and can be modified for virtually any setting. So without further ado, let's dig in and take a look at what we have here. So up at the top, we have the title. Of course, it's Island of Inheritance, with a very brief hook as to what it is that this little adventure is going to focus upon. So you have inherited an island under the proviso that you first stay there for a month. Easy enough, crystal clear. There's really no question about what it is what you're going to do. Of course, this is, based upon the fact that your characters, decide to take that hook. But who doesn't want to own an island in any sort of fantasy adventure? Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to own an island, period? But next up, we have some rumors, D6 rumors that follow that to kind of give a general idea of what they might expect. So let's take a little roll. And we have a 6. So that rumor is if you outnumber the apes, they'll leave you be. So I guess there's going to be apes involved within this island, and of course, probably very dangerous and something you don't want to encounter unless properly prepared, or like the rumor states, that you outnumber them. So carrying on, what else do we have here? Next page, brief description on traveling in time. Track time in segments, morning, afternoon, night. Moving to another hex of the same type takes the rest of the segment. So does searching the hex for additional discoveries. So there you go. You have a pretty much crystal clear and easy way to track time within this game. This is a hex crawl. There is a map, I think, on the next page or the other, and this also comes with a PNG of the hex map also. So if you decide to run this, you can print this out, or you can easily transfer it to any VTT that you're using, or just show the PNG as it is if you're not using a virtual tabletop, but you're just using Discord and you're showing images or handouts like most people would in scenarios like this. So carrying on, getting onto or off the glaciers. So there's glaciers on this island. Requires a mountaineering check. You need a 6 or higher on a 2d6 once for the whole party. Failures trigger a wandering and encounter check in both target and current hex. Circling the lakes takes 2 segments, crossing them takes 1. Once again, in a very small paragraph, you have an idea on how your adventurers are going to maneuver throughout this island hex crawl. Once again, easy, simple, shouldn't be an issue to track this. So, again, that's, when you're dealing with hex crawls, that's one of the things that, most people consider to be very important is, of course, tracking your time, tracking the segments of the day, other things like weather, other things like food and water, and other utilities as such. But it can be a bit of a juggle depending on how complicated the rules are within the hex crawl. But dealing with time here, easy peasy. All right, next up, we have random encounters. Roll 2d6 each segment, or if a party makes a target for itself. Deduct 1 from the first dice if on the glaciers. Add 1 to each dice if in the jungle. The first dice represents one encounter, the second what it's doing. So there you go. Once again, it should be fairly clear that the chances of them meeting somebody on the glacier is going to be, it's going to be a little less. Meeting up with something within the jungle is going to be a little bit more. takes the guesswork out of it right here on the paper, and once again making the job easier for the DM to handle everything. So we'll just do one. Let's see here, and whoops, that one disappeared. So we have a 2. So D6 plus 1 cassowaries, and we have 3. And their behavior is going to be clearing the area of rubbish. So, what is a cassowary, you might ask? I don't know. I did kind of bring this. I did see a couple things in here that I wasn't familiar with. Sean was very quick to provide a description. A lot of these things are self-explanatory: penguins, minks, but other things like, what is a bat-sailed dragon? Cassowary, I'm sure, is a thing. I could easily look it up, as anyone else could. But generally speaking, he said these were just things that he thought looked cool, things that he thought would be enjoyable on the island. And other than their stats, he doesn't really provide any description of them, leaving it up to the GM to decide, what these things want to be. I mean, outside of penguins, of course, and minks. But anyways, but like, for example, the general description of the bat-sailed dragon isn't necessarily a dragon. He essentially said it was equal to what most would consider a Dimetrodon. So just fair warning that, if you're not sure what these things are, you could easily look them up online, or swap out your favorite your favorite monster or animal for these things, utilizing a lot of the standard OSR traits. So there shouldn't be any issue with finding proper descriptions, or if you need anything other than their base ability scores that are provided here in the adventure to add to these creatures for flavor, for whatever reason. God, I hate that word flavor, but it just has stuck. But anyways, so that's one thing that knowing ahead of time going into this, if you were looking to pick this up, is there's not really any heavy lifting, but when it comes to the small amount of encounters here that are on this little island, you might need to fill in the gaps, so to speak, to just kind of give them a little bit more immersion. So what do we have on page 4? So here's the map. So each map here is numbered. As you can see, it's not only numbered, but it's titled. So it does give you a general idea of what is there if you're just looking at the map. I believe there's a similar player's map. I'm not 100% certain, but I'll double check that. But anyways, so you can see that every hex has a general description. It's numbered. There's also, looking at this particular hex map, you have an idea what's there without having to go to the particular description. But yeah, it is a good, decent looking hex map. Easily traversable, easily viewed, and not overly large. I mean, this is something that your characters are going to be on for a month, but there's enough variety here to maintain that their interest, even if you need a hand wave a few days here or there, just to kind of move it along in case you're not wanting to do day by day by day in certain things when it comes to hex crawls. So hex descriptions. Description lists what you notice when you look into the hex. So you have, he has here, look, what is obvious when you see, what is obvious when you're there. Okay, so here we go. Let's back a little bit. Got ahead of myself. Description lists what you notice when you look into the hex. So that is look, okay? What is obvious when you're there. This is what you see. And what you find if you search about, do. So he's got a little keywords to kind of help you, decipher what is on each one of these descriptions. Very, very crystal clear as far as I'm concerned, and an interesting, easy approach, bullet pointed here, to not bog you down in certain details, but also allows you as a GM to add your particular flourish and other things to make this island come alive. So example number 1. So 1.01, we've got a built cliff. Look. So if you're not in the hex, this is what you see. Wind-scoured glacier with intermittent stone structures in a line. Okay, so even if you read just that line alone to your players, it gives them a general idea of what it is they're looking at before they go there, and likewise kind of gives you an idea of what you may want to add to it. So what they see when they get there is blue-purple permafrost glacier with vast remains of a cliff wall. Foul-smelling remains of fish dot the glacier surface, small gangs of cassowaries. So there you go. Once you move into the hex, additional information to add to what they've seen before they traveled there. and then what happens there, or what they do when they're there. So do. Cassowaries. Cassowaries are highly territorial, valuing space over food. Okay, and you need to get an 8 or higher on a d6 to avoid them. And then here's the basic stats for the cassowary. Excuse me. So hit dice 1+1. They're a 9 AC. What is this? Attack of 1. ML of 10. I forget what that is. Movement of 120 and 110 experience. So excuse me with missing that little bit of information there. But once again, something that, if you're immersed in the OSR, you know it. If you're familiar with how old school D&D works, you know it. But if you don't, very easy to look up and, translate accordingly. Next up, another example, we've got a treetop village. When you're outside of the hex, look, lush green jungle with many of the same types of trees. Canopy looks sparse. What you see when you get there, an ancient treetop village made from stone, alien to the island, and woven vines. What you do when you're there, village has 3d6 houses. First d6 carefully closed up. The second d6 with signs of permanent abandonment. Third, d6 as shrines/tombs with 2d6 gold pieces worth of grave treasures each. So there you go. So if you're dealing with adventurers who are more interested in just the value of what they find, grave treasures is a perfect description. If you want to add a little bit of flair to that, you have a general idea of what they are, and you can do so accordingly. All right, so carrying on. So we as we go through here, you'll see that each one has the look-see format that Sean's described in the beginning. Likewise, if there happens to be an encounter there, the encounter, like the Bat-Sail Dragon there at the bottom, has the stats that you need to utilize without having to flip back and forth between a bestiary. And so we carry on through here until we get to the dungeon. Okay, so on this island there is a what he calls a tower dungeon, which is on hex 4.03. Inside the dungeon, I believe there's a map here. Where is the dungeon map? I thought there was a map. Maybe it was included with the download, or maybe I'm thinking of something else. So, interesting. I could have swore there was a map. Anyways, if there is a map, of course, all the information here that regarding Sean, his other adventures, a link to this, and also if you sign up for his newsletter, this particular adventure is available for free for you to pick up. But anyways, so what we have here is the tower, the dungeon description. So we have the tower dungeon. So it's numeric, slick floor with tripwires, 7 or higher on a d6 or fall. Carrying on through the descriptions, there is a variety of valuable items that you can pick up here. Interesting things like a clockwork guardian, rusted and largely incapacitated. There's also a clockwork mechanism rusted into the park position with repair. Tower can be moved, so the tower itself can be moved. And you'll see it's a fairly short dungeon. So there's 3 levels. There's also the hollow dungeon. I'm sorry, wait a minute. Okay, so there's different dungeons here. My mistake. I thought there was a particular dungeon where everything is located, but we'll scroll back up to the map. Now, mind you, this is a I did kind of breeze through it, but this is the first time that I'm actually sitting down with it to get a first impression of it. So, my bad. But so there you go. So you have, a variety of different things on here regarding there we go, the hanging tower. So I could be mistaken. I mean, oh yeah, they're on different hexes. So there we go. Yeah. I'm dyslexic, so sometimes things just kind of jump away from my perceived vision, and then once I sit down and focus on it, zoop, they come back in. So Tower Dungeon, Hex 4.03. There you go. So 5 different locations within the dungeon. You can set it up accordingly as you want, of course. So if you want to flesh out a dungeon, you can just put it down on the hex map. Hollow Dungeon. On Hex 3.05, cavern floor slick with slime, bones mostly cleared away. So kind of in line with a lot of different ways that people are creating certain adventures, especially in the OSR. They're trading these in-depth descriptions and other things such as box text for bullet points or numbered descriptions with just enough information for you to have a general idea. But as a GM, you are at your own helm to provide additional information, immersion into it, fill in the gaps and whatnot. So there's consistency here, but it still allows you to make it your own. So great pools of congealing blood. What could that possibly be? And as you continue on into the Hollow Dungeon. And then finally, we have the Burrow Dungeon on Hex 2.03. Wide, deep pits with rotting bodies at the bottom. Another bat cell dragon. Room full of flat bones. Room full of long bones. And a room full of jaw bones. So this is the lair of the bat cell dragon. And then finally, or not finally, but next we have living on the island. So things that your adventurers would need to pay attention to, if they were actually going to fulfill the promise of staying on here for a month. Water, important. Like I said, resources are usually important and focused upon in a hex crawl. Glacier water can be drunk freely. Jungle trees can be tapped for hydrating saps. Salt lakes and seawater require purified food and drink or distillation. Food, edible mushrooms can simply be harvested, and if care is taken not to kill them near the flock, the penguins can just be picked up. And dinner time. Jungle fruits are edible, but too fibrous to be good eating. Moss-fed newts are good to eat when cooked. And then dealing with shelter. Sleeping in tents on the glaciers brings great risk of hypothermia. Save versus death or cumulative -1 to all dice rolls until warmed. It's incredibly easy to bivouac in the jungle, though you'll be attacked every time you rest near active apex predators on or near Hex 2.03 or 3.05. And then finally, we have here the monster roster, a secondary area where you can gather all of the information that you need that's used throughout. And likewise, if it's there if you want to fill in other things within the hex crawler, the jungles, or the other locations here on the island. So all in all, what encompasses the roster: a bat cell dragon, cassowary, lamprey caiman, a mandrill, mink, newt, and penguins. Written in and DTP by Sean F. Smith. I'm not sure what that means, but cartography using HexTML, and Nazi slags get in the sea. Yeah, under the legal information. So there you go. So there you go. I mean, to me, this seems like a cool little adventure that can be thrown in the middle of a campaign if you have an ongoing campaign, especially in something in the OSR where eventually, depending on the rule set that you're using, your adventures are going to be attaining followers. And one thing that you would like to have for followers is a place for them to stay. So inheriting this island would allow your PCs to essentially have a base of operations, a place where they can set up their tower or their thieves guild, or their keep. Likewise, if your players are a group of ne'er-do-wells or the apex of scum and villainy, an absolutely perfect base of operations for them if they're taking the route and pirating and whatnot. So this is something that also can be thrown in for a little bit of extra flavor if you're doing an adventure like the Isle of Dread. Not that the Isle of Dread needs any additional stuff thrown into it, but it could be something for them to do. I mean, before they leave to the Isle of Dread. I mean, one of the biggest things about the Isle of Dread is obtaining a safe and secure place, and maybe having an island that they stay on for a month, to set up a base camp or a base of operations before venturing into the Isle of Dread. There you go. You have it right here. So, that is pretty much it. That's I knew this was going to be fairly quick, and I knew that this was a fairly easy video to do, but wanted to get out there right away because of the very gracious aspect of Sean providing this to me. I wanted to give it the treatment it deserved before, I moved on to other things, or my ADHD just went the other way and I was chasing a squirrel. But So thank you, Sean. I appreciate this. This is an excellent little adventure. I hope other people discover it. I hope people either pick it up. You can get it on itch.io. I'll put the links in the description. And likewise, if mentioned or as long as it lasts, if you go to the itch.io site, you'll find another link which will take you to sign up for his newsletter, which I believe is still allowing you to get this adventure for free when you do so. Well, there you go. So, once again, this has been another completely unprofessional virtual unboxing. My name is Scott. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to check out the other things I do, please go check out Titterpigs, the tabletop RPG podcast that I do with Keith from rollingboxcars.com, and other things that I do. Oh yeah, my complete meanderings on Twitter at Hail Orcus Dorcas. Currently, right now, I'm like so many people, throwing in my 10 cents regarding 1D&D and having a complete hissy fit over what actually is inside the 5e Spelljammer set, and come to find out, deservedly so. So, anyways, enough posturing. Thank you so much, and have yourself a wonderful day. God, I always lose the button. There we go. Take care.